Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Daryl from Holyrad Studio coming at you live from our Soho location, and welcome to Fish Out of Water, a monthly podcast where we created a popular demand to give some insight on the behind-the-scenes life here of running this company and being a part of the incredible community. We hope to shine a light on some really interesting things, not only about the people like these lovely ladies here, about what we do, but also about to explore some curiosities and to point some questions on some things that we encounter from our members, from our clients, and more. So today, our wonderful guest for our third episode is Saskia. Saskia is an incredible human being. I wish I could be like her when I grow up.
Me too.
I've known Saskia for about 20 years. And I have a privilege to call her my family. Growing up, I think as third culture kids, we don't always get the privilege of actually building relationships with our blood family. And so as a result of our parents' very close relationship, I'm very fortunate to have you in my life. And so today we're gonna give a little bit of insight on how wonderful you are. So I also have my co-host here, Elena Franco, head of research and development. And as well as Saskia, you're another host that we're also interviewing. So third time's the charm, right? So why don't we jump right in? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at the company?
Well, hi, I'm Saskia. I'm the content and operations director at Holyrad Studio.
Yes, you are.
I've been working here for about 3 years.
Oh my God.
It has been about 3 years, right?
I don't know. Time is crazy.
I became an intern when I
What year are you in school?
I just turned 20.
Yeah.
So
2017?
3 years. It's coming up on 3 years.
Was that 2017?
2017.
Yeah. And I, like Daryl said, I've known her, for about 20 years. But when I moved back to the UK, I didn't see you for about
a decade.
10 years.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York because I got into Tisch for film and TV. And in my second year, I had to create a documentary for a documentary class.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to make it on Daryl because she's running this studio and it's doing really incredible things. And I came in at the Clinton Hill location.
Yeah.
So you just opened up the Clinton Hill location. And I came in to tell you that I wanted to do a documentary on you and what you were doing. And there were 2 chairs in the office.
We were.
And I think,
Just
Elena,
moved in.
you know what's funny? You were there. Do you remember? Do you remember me coming in and you ordered Seamless to the wrong location?
Oh my God,
That's when I came in. That's when I came in.
Snowing.
Yeah, and it was
And
snowing,
I used this whiteboard to flush out this law. It was whatever. I was in some law class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
I
crazy.
sat on the floor and
So
Daryl
traumatized
drew
about
out.
my bagel.
Elena's still upset about her fucking bagel.
Oh my God.
You live here now, it's fine.
If we knew in that moment that the 3 of us would be running the company.
That's a moment right
Yeah, and Daryl drew the business model on the whiteboard for me, and I said I want to center the documentary around that. Long story short, I knew I fell in love with Holyrad because I filmed, I think it was between 20 and 40 hours. I mean, it's somewhere
Okay, you guys,
around there.
she was supposed to make a documentary that was supposed to be how many minutes?
Less than 10.
Yeah, and she got 40 hours of footage. I think that maybe she just didn't want to go to class.
I didn't want to go to class. I wanted to be at Holyrad all the time. I made the documentary. I started interning. Daryl asked me what I actually would want to do as an intern. I remember loving that question. I wasn't told what to do, and I said, you guys need more video content.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started. And then you offered me equity in the company when I was still at school, and I said, okay, but I have to graduate first. Then I had a mental breakdown, and then I dropped out.
Okay. There's lots of juicy tidbits in there where you're skipping way over so much.
So
Why don't you ask some questions?
Yeah.
What do you
So
got?
from the moment that you were like, oh my God, I love this place, leading up to I'm dropping out of college.
Yeah.
Because like that is a big.
Well, you were at Tisch, right? You were
I
at
was
the
at
same
Tisch.
university that I went
I
to.
was at Tisch for film and TV, and I had a lot of issues with the program, but I didn't understand what the issues were until I started freelancing through Holyrad's production company. Until I started freelancing at the same time as going to my classes.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird, I guess not, limbo is kind of the word for it, a weird limbo to be in because you're experiencing the real world and monetizing your craft, and then you're also going to school for it at the same time. And it was really difficult to work really hard as a freelancer on location, you know, learning how to use a camera, taking jobs that I was not prepared for, learning on my feet, and then sitting in a class that was sort of telling me that I needed all this money to be successful, and the two just weren't lining up. And I remember texting you a lot during those classes and saying, what am I doing here? But also what was scary was that all of the tools that I needed to monetize my craft that I was going to school for, I was not being provided with. And I knew that, and I was very fortunate to learn that because I was freelancing whilst being at school.
Yeah.
And I think what is scary is that most people don't realize it until they've graduated. And so when I dropped out, I had a lot of skills under my belt, and I knew what an invoice was. And
well, let's not. Hold on. We're skipping over something that I think is really important, and as long as we're allowed, like the whole point of this, right, is to like give some intimacy and some vulnerability here, right? Because that's where all the juicy tidbits are. So I want us to talk about the most important point in this story, and that was the very vivid memory of you coming in in the middle of this breakdown and sitting with me and asking me permission if you could drop out, which I say it that way because it was that way. I remember a friend of mine, Dylan, actually saying to me 6 months before that moment, I don't understand why you're coming back to NYU. Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah. And I said because I have to, because my family has spent money on this. And there were, a couple different family members and non-related family members who like not blood related, who were contributing. So there was a lot of pressure to finish. But I remember my mom asking me actually, once I did drop out, she said to me, why didn't you tell me you weren't enjoying yourself? And I'd been told by a lot of deans also to take a year off. And the thing is you're so miserable that you just want to get it over with as well. So there were loads of people telling me that I didn't want to be there, and I just couldn't hear it because of the amount of money that you're spending and the pressure on getting that piece of paper because of how much money you've spent. But
already have spent.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I had a year to go when I dropped out, and that even someone the other day said, "Whoa, why didn't you just finish that year?"
What was the moment like when you like made that decision? Like, where were you when you were like, actually? It's kind of like the moment when you came into my apartment and I was like, I actually don't ever fucking take the bar like again. Like, I don't want to even I don't want to do anything remotely close to that, so why am I working so hard in this thing for this thing that I don't even want?
Yeah, I had a really gruesome breakdown that like my sister witnessed as well, and that was tough for our relationship, but I couldn't get out of bed for like a week, and then I had the really sort of the peak of the breakdown, and then I went into Holyrad the next day, and I sat with Daryl and I said, what do I do, because I don't want to go back. And I remember you asking me, do you feel like you've learned everything that you possibly could? And this kind of leads me on to what was tough about Tisch was that, yes, I felt like I had, because I had completed all of my film credits, and I went to do film. I didn't go to do French. I didn't go to do gen eds. I didn't go to do those classes. I wanted to spend that money because of the film program. And I had completed all of my credits.
And it's a good program.
It's a good program, and I had good classes, and I will say that I learned I don't think this is very differently, but I learned on my feet. I don't learn by sitting in a class and sort of looking at a PowerPoint. And I remember us being walked through in a class of PowerPoint on a camera and shooting and cinematography, and I didn't take a single note. I was bored out of my fucking mind. And now, cinematography is one of my skills, but it's because you put a camera into my hands and just said, just try, just do it, just actually do it and work on your feet until you have mastered it.
And also YouTube.
Yeah. And YouTube, and all of these new resources are really incredible, and I just felt like I'd sort of exhausted all of the knowledge that I could gain from there, and I was I was struggling to be judged on my GPA when I was working harder than anyone else. I was ADing a set every single weekend for 6 weeks, back to back. I was working 40 hours a week at Holyrad, and I was going to my classes.
She was pushing those credits to the
which
limit
were
for internship.
like 16 credits. So I irritated my sciatica, which apparently was due to me doing too much. I was taking about 3 painkillers an hour for my chronic pain in my collarbone, to the point where I got so scared of how much I was damaging my liver that I took a trip back to the UK in January to ask for like better treatment, because I was popping painkillers and I was...
So it's easy to say that like all of these signs were pointing at this is not worth it, but for some reason that same voice that told Elena to take the bar, and that same voice that I think everybody has in their own way that says, but you're supposed to, and I think it's kind of safer if, even though there's no other sign in your immediate surroundings and your actual experience that's telling you that it's a good idea, you know? And, you know, that's kind of why I said it the way that I did. You came to me to talk with me about, you know, if I were to drop out, what were to happen? And for me, it always felt strange because it felt like you were asking me permission, right? And it felt in that way because, you know, I didn't drop out of school. I finished class. And, you know, I was a good person to talk with about that for sure, because I went to the same college within the university, but our experience were vastly different, and our majors are vastly different, and they're not interconnected in any way, despite sharing the building and being one floor away from each other and kind of being in the same exact craft. Anyways, so when you asked me, you know, am I going to miss out on anything? What I told you was actually true. Nobody to date has asked me where I went to school or looked for proof in order for me to get a job.
That was a scary realization. And also a scary realization because I was working outside of NYU and freelancing, and no one ever asked me my age. No one ever asked me where I went to school, if I graduated, if I had a degree, anything. And I remember telling my parents that as well. And it's actually something Kamal said to me, who's a dear friend, and he said, I think that parents, getting a degree is like a universal badge for parents. It's still something that all parents can be proud of and understand. Whereas, and he said, if I turn to my mom and I say, my song got 80K streams on Spotify, she's
which
like,
is really impressive, by the way.
In a week or whatever, and she's like, that's great, but you know, I'm so proud you got a degree. And it's trying to educate your parents in the new sort of what success is today, basically.
And well-intended parents who love you and want you to succeed, but do not have the understanding and are able to translate.
Are grounded in what the actual economy is today and the actual reality, which is that piece of paper may maybe get you in the door, but can you actually execute the skills that you did?
Well, in the 90s, it did do that.
It did, exactly. But today it's about, can you execute the skill? But no one's actually telling you how to execute the skill. They're giving you the philosophy in class or the PowerPoint of how a camera works, but like...
you know, exactly. And I think the reason I want to teach a class on pricing yourself as a freelancer is because of the amount of... importance in sort of understanding your self-worth to be able to price yourself. And
it's deeply
that needs
emotional.
to be a class at Tisch, because you can't quite, it's something I remember Kamal saying as well. Most of my conversations happened with him, but
shout out to Kamal.
Yeah, shout out to Kamal. When he charged a client less, because I'm outing him right now, but he charged a client less because it took him less time to do something because of all the years that he'd put into training himself in Photoshop. And I said, why would you charge less based on that?
Isn't getting it done faster more valuable to your customer?
Exactly. And isn't the fact that you are that skilled in Photoshop the reason you should be charging more? And it was these kind of dots that no one coming out of Tisch was connecting. And a lot of different issues, like a friend of mine who became an employee and then suddenly saw his skills on an invoice for a freelancer in his field and going, oh my God, I'm getting paid, you know, and
pennies on the dollar. Yeah.
And And also it was my dad and I riding the subway. It was after, my class had graduated and my dad was visiting me and we ran into an old friend on the subway and she said, I still don't have a job. I'm still working at Tisch. And my dad actually said that this was inspiring him to want to go into the education system because of how little students are being informed on monetizing their craft and going from university to the job market, which is so hard to enter right now. And I'm watching Kamau. I'm watching Kamau try and get a 9-to-5 because it's secure and steady income in his field of work, which is videography, which is editing, which is creative, and there is not a market for that anymore. It is freelance.
Yeah, if you actually look at the data, which says that about, almost 50% of the entire nation is freelance. But in New York in particular, it's probably even higher. Yeah. Don't know how accurate the data collection is.
If you include part-time, I mean, it's high.
It's high. It's really high. But, a majority of those freelancers are doing what? They're in production.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to give that sort of satisfaction of your parents and the people that you want to make proud with the stability when they don't understand that the market is changing and the education system has not caught up to that changing market, But I think what's really powerful here is that it's not that education wasn't important. It was. Yeah. But you gave yourself permission to take all of the facts, look at the statement that says you're supposed to get a degree and say, it's not true for me.
Yeah.
And again, what Elena did, which was so powerful, she said, I'm gonna change my mind. I don't need this.
Yeah.
In fact, the more polite thing to do for the people that who are empowering you and putting you in a position where you're able to do school, the family members that contribute to your tuition, right? I mean, members, plural, and that's a luxury. The best thing for you to do is to actually say, listen, you don't need to spend $25,000 a year for me to get a French credit for me to graduate. I'm fluent in French and it's not going to help me make a living and make a difference. Yeah. So what is really cool, I think, about all three of our stories here is that we're in completely different worlds, really. Every individual person has a unique story and a unique experience. And to say that they're all the same is a little reductive, but we can connect some certain dots. And I think if we were to boil it down, what is the thing that what's the magnet that brings the three of us together and then also the other people within our community to want to come here? And it's to say, you have the permission to do what you want. Yeah. You can do what you want and you can make a living.
Exactly as you are, right? Because your experience of going to school, it's like everything I've done, I don't regret it. I don't regret going to law school or even trying to take the bar.
Going to NYU brought me to Holyrad.
Exactly.
I'm very thankful for that.
What you're doing with that.
Yeah, right? You have the power of choice.
Yeah,
exactly.
And when something is just told to you over and over again about that's what you do, but that's what you do, that's what you do, it creates an illusion that it's not still a choice.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, the reason for why we're so adamant about and proud about being a media company. We create stories, we share stories, and it's part of the reason why this podcast is so important is because I want if even one person somewhere in the world is in the middle of a similar struggle, they can go, wow, all right, well, I didn't realize that was even a possibility. Yeah. It's truly it's so satisfying. It's so wonderful to see. But so let's cut back a little bit to how you got here, right? Because that story is definitely a huge part of how you got here. But now we're 3 years later. What have you accomplished and what are you excited about the work that you've done?
I mean, I think I never thought that I'd be running a business, which is quite huge. And there's it's about one student in Tisch that gets accepted into the dual degree of business and film.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really, really competitive, and there's a really long process for it. And I didn't even apply for it because I just didn't think that that's
for
the direction that's the direction that I'd be going in until I realized that the freedom in being your own boss and the freedom in creating your own job. And that's what's also so exciting about entrepreneurship is you are creating your own job. Yeah. You're creating, your own operations, your own goals, your own schedule, your own project management, everything. And I had so much fun doing that, but it's also not something, it's not a course that you can find.
Yeah.
But also, you know, something that I think I struggled with was when I was 15 and I was asked what I wanted to do at university. And in the UK, it's actually a lot more limited. I know they're expanding it now, but when I was 15, it's like you're taking 4 subjects at A-level. So one of those 4 subjects is what you're going to be studying for 4 years. We don't have a liberal arts course.
Okay.
So it was either French, psychology, history, or art.
What?
What?
Yeah.
I mean, at least art was one of them.
But art, I said to them, okay, I want to do film.
Yeah.
And my art teacher called in a meeting between my head of year and my mom saying she's not going to get into NYU. She's not good enough in film.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, that
Love the
that
projections
British
from
way
other
of
people.
really supporting your students and
Yeah.
having faith in them is just not. I mean, it's also British mentality. You don't think that you're the best.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember also having to apply to American universities and someone who was helping me saying, no, you're the best thing that's ever happened. You have nowhere
That's
to
the
improve.
American way,
And I was like,
like,
what? No, that's not me. You know, and our head of year, who was American, was actually rewriting my teacher's recommendation letters, because where they'd say, well, you know, Saskia could improve in this, she'd be like, nope, she's incredible at everything. And it got me in, which was really exciting. But I did film because my mom said she wouldn't pay for photography. And so I found a film course that was, I mean, absolutely incredible. It cost £10 for 6 weeks.
Wasn't it like
of
a flyer that you saw
Yes.
at a bus stop or something like
Yes.
that?
And it was £10 for 6 weeks of intense film course.
Wow.
And I remember talking to a freelancer for the first time. I didn't even know what a freelancer was.
You gotta find those people.
I
You
know,
gotta thank
I
them.
know. And he explained what it was to kind of have his own schedule and everything. And that's, you know, where I did see an intersection between running a business and just being a freelancer. And I've even tried to explain that to friends of mine, where I've said that I think people aspire to be a freelancer because it's the dream to work, you know, 2 days out of the month and then do nothing the rest of the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're going to reach that point where you do get those 2 huge clients a month, and then you're traveling and you're doing your own passion projects, you have to actually run yourself like a 9 to 5 for a couple years before you can get to that point. And I think that's where people struggle the most, is
Totally.
as a freelancer, it's like, why aren't these jobs coming here? You know, and my mom even said to me recently, she said, what's it like being a freelancer? And I said, it's as if on the first of the month, a timer goes off. You have 30 days to make your rent, and then on the 30th day, you drain your account and you drain all the money that you've made, and then the timer goes off again the next day, and you live like that. And so I understand why people go for 9 to 5s that are, you know, more secure. But and
trade-off. Yeah.
Exactly. But something that I've seen, I think, 3 times in the past couple months happening to our members is that they are going into a creative 9 to 5, right? Which are hard to come by now, and people really want that stability.
Yeah.
But the amount of work that they are doing, and you think about how much money they could make if they were paid as a freelancer.
Paid as their own business, right?
Paid
Because
as their
they're
own, okay, an
employee.
LLC, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, paid as their own business.
Yeah.
And that actually what sort of these companies are doing is giving you that stability, giving you, you know, healthcare is included too. Like,
But also, you guys, that's literally what happened to me. Let's cut back to episode 1. I got a job as the head photographer of a Y Combinator backed fashion platform. Okay, like, first of all, just Google Y Combinator. It's huge angel investment for it. It was a big deal, right? But the trade-off was, oh, I'm gonna take this job and then I'm gonna have all this extra time to, you know, to pursue the things that I actually care about, right? No time. There was no time.
They take your time for that. You are paying your time for that quote unquote stability.
And guess what? I didn't even own any of the content. To this day, I cannot show that work in my portfolio as an example of my capabilities.
100%.
and you know, and what's scary as well is, going back to one of the examples and the people I'm thinking about that this happened to, is the 2 people who were running his company are pocketing his freelance prices. Like, they're an agency, so his job is actually being priced correctly when they charge the client. But what he gets paid out is his salary.
It's like, if you want stability, you have to take a lower cut. And I think, you know, I think that there's something really powerful about your story, Saskia, because you're right. You were given an insider sort of trade opportunity to call the bullshit, you know? And it's not pointing a finger at any particular institution or particular person. What we're saying here is, hey, we're noticing a problem. Let's actually fix it, you know?
But also the problem is people aren't even aware of the problem because
it's too late by the time they realize.
It's too late, exactly. And in school, where, you know, not that everyone goes there, but it would be a good place for people to be educated about these things, to be told to look out for these things, to just understand what it is to monetize yourself outside of
a corporate structure.
The employee-employer relationship. You don't understand. It's like only lawyers can be lawyers.
Yeah.
There's no other thing.
No, yeah. Let's break down a little labor law here while we have the expert.
Like that's, I think, the irony is that we are trained to become the workforce, to be the labor, when in reality, it's just somebody else who is just smart enough, or not smart enough, who just was whatever enough to come up with the concept, execute it, and then hire out because they understand that
hire somebody else to hire it out.
Exactly.
But, you know, I want to actually bring this full circle because I think we're getting really close to one of the major pillars of our purpose of our company, which is that from day one, when we enter into education, it's about what? Arrive on time for the bus so you'll miss it. Ding, time's up, right? Sit forward, look straight, listen to this person, copy it right back. What are we being trained for, right? We are being trained to be a worker, a factory worker, an employee, all the way up to an MBA. You get an MBA not to start your own business, but become a better employee for some other large corporation. Corporations will pay you to get educated and pay for your education to get an MBA. Why? Because you're learning how to be a better employee. And so what's really hard and what we're trying to do at Holyrad, right, is to say, listen, you want the freedom of being a freelancer, this dream, right, of being able to you dictate where you're going to be. You dictate who you're going to work with. In order for you to do that, you have got to learn all the skills that have been purposely, systematically left out of your education, which is problem solving, right? Well, I mean, I would love for our elementary school to replace mathematics with just like basic IRS taxes. That would be wonderful. I'm not sure if anybody's out there listening that has that political power, but that would be awesome. But it's really about saying, listen, it's not just like I become a freelancer and like everything's great. Okay, maybe if you are like Jeff Bezos' future child, maybe great, but not everybody's a trust fund kid, and even those who are wealthy enough to be able to have a little bit more runway to figure these things out, there's still going to be that difference of either you figure out either you're already educated in operations or you have to be wealthy enough to have enough time to figure it out until you get there. And so what we're trying to do is bring people straight directly to those solutions and say, listen, if you want to be your own boss, that means you got to do all the things that a boss normally does. Tell you where to go, when to be, how to be there, how good your work is. You've got to be your own boss. That's what it means. It's not some sort of like meme on some feel-good Instagram that's supposed to inspire you, live, laugh, love style. It's straight up like, you got to fucking be responsible yourself, dude. You got to take responsibility. Doesn't mean it's your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Exactly. And that is something that like, I think you keep illuminating was just the discrepancy of what you were learning at Tisch to what you were actually doing in the day-to-day.
So far away from each other.
So far away. I mean, like, it's
why I felt like I was starting to waste my time.
But at the end of the day, like, I think that's so powerful, Saskia. Most people, like, don't realize that until they're out and they're like, oh, why can't I get a job? And it's like, can you do this skill? And you're like, no, I do
want to give the anecdote that I'm most proud of in like my time at Holyrad, probably. I mean, in terms of office hours, was when Sarah Shecker came in. She had just graduated from NYU for photo.
Shout out to Sarah Shecker. She's also a WJ alum. Shout out to Mr. Kempner. Love you, man. Hope you're listening to this.
And she's an incredible photographer.
Incredible.
And she came in for an office hour. She hadn't shot at the studio yet, and
very competent, very well educated.
And I remember she was half an hour late. So I was like, Sarah, we only have half an hour. And I said, what do you want to know? And she said, I just graduated. I want to be a freelance photographer. What do I do? I said, well, what gigs do you have right now? She said, I'm getting paid under the table, $50 for headshots and stuff. And I was like, oh God. So I made a Google Doc. I said, do you know what QuickBooks is? She said, no. I said, do you send invoices to clients? She said, no. I said, do you give them a contract? She said, no. I said, do they give you a contract? She said, no. I said, how'd you get paid? She said, in cash.
Oh my God.
Under the table. And I went, okay, so this is what you're going to do. And I priced out everything that she, you know, all of her services, which range from event photography to headshots to portraiture, all of that. I priced it, and she could not believe how high the prices were. And I then took her through QuickBooks and how to set that up.
And mind you, they're not actually that high.
They're not that high.
They're base entry level prices.
And I always say to our members as well is that every time that you, a talented photographer
who paid $250,000 to be educated,
undercharge a client, you are fucking it up for the rest of us, because why would they hire us at higher prices when they can get you at $20 an hour?
That's a universal oil price.
I mean,
not yet, Daryl.
We'll leave that for another one.
So Sarah then, Sarah went, oh my God, I didn't know any of these things.
Yeah.
She stormed back into Tisch, went up to her head of something or whatever and said, I have just spent, you know, $750,000 like on my education. And I learned more in half an hour with Saskia than I did in 4 years at this institution.
Because they're not teaching you, right? They're teaching you what is a truly beautiful photo, which is absolutely essential.
So where is the balance? Where is the balance?
Like, how do I actually thrive off of this trade?
Exactly. How do I make money from this beautiful photo?
Exactly.
You know, otherwise I can't work in my passion. And you know, something that we always say at Holyrad as well is that the idea of a starving artist
is ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous, especially in 2020 when everything is based on content, visuals.
Can we come up with a more original idea? Like, we're not going to eat paint like Van Gogh. Like, let's drop it, you know? But I think that there's so much just, I think, universal experience in your story, Saskia. Because 100%. I don't think you're just talking about something that's pervasive for just film students at Tisch. No. And we're not pointing a finger at the people who run that organization, because believe me, they're good people and they know 100%. What they're doing. And at the end of the day, there's just a gap between the experience of their alumni and what's actually going on in school.
Yeah.
If everybody did what Sarah did in the middle of the education, they said, we want to learn this, we want to learn this. Do you really think those deans wouldn't do that? What?
Yeah.
They would. Yeah, they would, but the timing is off. And just because of that slight little difference that you had, right, of being able to freelance through Holyrad, it was life-changing, not just for you, but now for all of the people that come your way.
Shout out to Saskia and shout out to Holyrad, because this type of content and this type of information we're creating more and more online. And Saskia's Price Yourself is about to be an epic like worksheet and class and office hour and all of those things.
Yes, you sell it, girl.
Yes. Because it has she's created this whole thing where you have to really think through real-time things that people have told to Saskia.
You have to believe in yourself. When people say, you know, well, why is it that women aren't doing as well? You know, why is it that people of color aren't doing as well? Like, obviously that is due to like systemic issues, but also it's an issue of confidence as well.
Ooh, yep. It's very hard to be confident when you're constantly being told you're not good enough, right? And so to unlearn that societal indoctrination is a whole other conversation.
As part of just being a freelancer, like it's psychological, you know, and that's why Chris Do is so incredible.
And that is why in our application we have, do you experience imposter syndrome? Because that is a huge barrier. Do you believe in yourself?
Yeah. So listen, you guys, we obviously could talk longer, but forever and ever, and we probably will. We're just going to break it down in a couple of 30-minute episodes. So we have a couple minutes left. Is there anything that you want to talk about in terms of now that you're here, right? We've got 5 years in, you're 3 years in. What dreams do you have, I think, for your own personal journey in this? Like, what would you love to see happen now that you're here? It's a big question.
It's a big question. You know, I think probably the most valuable thing that I've learned is being able to take skills from a subject that you're an expert in and applying them to a subject that you are not an expert in. And, you know, just recently starting to manage Kamau, and I was like, I'm not in the music industry, I don't know anything, but you'd actually be surprised at how skills in a field that is completely different to the one that you're trying to enter are still relevant and will actually help you succeed. Yeah. And so, you know, increasing the knowledge of that in our members.
And giving them permission to recognize that they have an abundance of knowledge that they just don't know they're allowed to apply is it's a great point. Yeah. And also, we keep referencing Kamau in this episode.
Shout out to Kamau.
Like, he is studio manager, musician, rapper, artist.
Yeah.
He's incredible. But he's also the person that designed our jingle at the beginning of the episode. So if you like his music, please go follow him. He is
Kamau with Sunflowers.
Kamau with Sunflowers on Instagram. And you can also listen to his music under the name Mao on Spotify and wherever you listen to music.
Incredible. Also, he performs all over New York City. So check him out.
Support local artists. Yeah. All right, guys. So I think this is a great conversation. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Even if there's just one person out there that felt that this resonated, please hit us up, DM us, follow us on Twitter. Let us know what you guys want to hear. We'll be coming up with the next few episodes for the next season to roll out on a monthly level. At this point, we don't really know what that is. So I'm going to leave it to you, our audience, to contact us and let us know what you would like to hear about our organization, and also just anything else you're interested in, really. We're curious, and
we're so curious in all the topics, sometimes a little controversial.
Yeah, it's all right. We're gonna go on this journey together. So thank you guys so much for supporting. Please make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and we will catch you next month. See ya.
And cut.